welcome to another episode of Codo Cinema, the podcast show where I talk about movies. I'm your host, Mark Codo, aka Codoman. For this episode of Codo Cinema, I'm going to talk about another Marvel movie from the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and this will be from Phase 5, which is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Now, the reason why being because Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is the second film installment for Phase 5 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, following the box office bomb, which is Ant-Man 3: Quantumania. Ant-Man 3 was the first film in Phase 5 for the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which kicked off the phase very poorly. Although, as I mentioned in my Ant-Man 3 review, I didn't hate the film. I thought the film didn't. I thought the film wasn't that good. However, with Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 being the second film to come out of Phase 5 for the Marvel Cinematic Universe, this film I actually enjoyed a lot more than Ant-Man 3, and the reason being because Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is said to be the final installment in the Guardians of the Galaxy film trilogy, which is basically the sequel to the original Guardians of the Galaxy film that came out in 2014, and Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, which came out in 2017. Plus, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is the 32nd film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. The film was written and directed by James Gunn, and it features an ensemble cast which includes Chris Pratt, Zoe Saldana, Dave Bautista, Karen Gillan, Paul Clementif, Vin Diesel, Bradley Cooper, Will Poulter, Sean Gunn, Chukwudi Iwuji, Linda Cardellini, Nathan Fillion, and Sylvester Stallone. Now, the plot for this film is basically the Guardians of the Galaxy embarking on a mission to protect Rocket Raccoon from the High Evolutionary. Now, that is basically the plot of the film. Now, with this film, I was excited and worried at the same time. Now, the reason why I was excited because Guardians of the Galaxy is my favorite superhero movie of all time, in my personal opinion. Now, I have seen both Guardians of the Galaxy films. They're both some of my favorite movies of all time. The cast, I really love the cast. I really love the ensemble cast, the music choices that they play, the high stakes action sequences, the humor, the chemistry between the characters. I mean, man, there is so much going on with the Guardians of the Galaxy. And I really love Chris Pratt as Peter Jason Quill, also known as Star-Lord. Who? Star-Lord, man, legendary outlaw. Just imagine, like, you go back to the first film, and like nobody knows who Star-Lord is. I mean, it's just like I'm Peter Quill, but you may know me as Star-Lord. Who? Star-Lord, man, legendary outlaw. That's just funny, man. But now going into the third film does take a different direction compared to the previous films. And most notably, as I mentioned, because the plot focuses on Rocket Raccoon. Yes, the entire film really focuses more on Rocket's backstory of how Rocket became the raccoon that he is for the Guardians of the Galaxy. Now, before I break down the film, by the way, huge spoiler warnings for those of you who have not seen the film. Huge spoiler warnings. I want to give my background on the overall production of this film. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 was originally going to come out in 2020, which is basically at the time when Phase 4 was happening. Unfortunately, the pandemic did set things back, but also the firing of James Gunn that happened back in 2018 prior to Avengers Infinity War coming out. And this really stirred a lot of attention from the entire Guardians of the Galaxy cast and crew, because Disney fired James Gunn in July of 2018 following the resurface of controversial posts on Twitter, but somehow the studio reversed course by that October and reinstated him. And his return, James Gunn's return, was publicly revealed in March of 2019, with the production of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 resuming after Gunn completed work on the DC film The Suicide Squad, which came out in 2021. Of course, the first season of his spin-off show Peacemaker, which starred John Cena as the title character Peacemaker. Now, now that really took that production itself was difficult to get off the ground because of the firing of James Gunn, plus James Gunn transitioning from Marvel to DC. Speaking of which, James Gunn is gonna helm a brand new universe for the DC extended universe, to which I briefly mentioned about James Gunn in some of my previous podcast episodes, because of the fact with the Flash coming out sometime in June of this year. That film is said to, with Ezra frickin' Miller, is said to reboot the entire DC universe with the transitioning from Zack Snyder's universe to James Gunn's universe. Which begs the question: how is James Gunn gonna handle the DC universe now, especially after the success of the Suicide Squad and Peacemaker? I mean, to be honest with you, I mean, I think he'll do a fine job. But for where DC is standing at with Ezra Miller right now, it is hard to tell. Other than that, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 was the final film for James Gunn to direct for Marvel, and I will tell you this: this film, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, really had a lot going on. Like, there was a lot going on in this film. The film is 2.5 hours, so it's a lot going on because of the fact that this film solely focused on Rocket Raccoon, but also giving a send off to all the main characters from the Guardians of the Galaxy. So there is a lot going on. Now I know a lot of people were very excited for this film, while some people weren't. Now, because of the reason being because of how Marvel, how Disney is basically how Disney is taking a different direction for the Marvel Cinematic Universe now compared to the previous phases, and of course with Ant-Man 3 bombing at the box office, on top of the whole visual effects controversy that happened, it is hard to not overlook this film. Plus, people tuning out of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Like, I know a lot of people are tuning out of the Marvel Cinematic Universe because of where Disney is going with Marvel. But with Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, I thought it was pretty good. I actually enjoyed this film. Now, do I think it's a perfect film? Not really, but I find it as a good send off because it really because there were definitely character send offs for our main characters. So going into this film. I'm gonna go into the breakdown of the film. Well, actually, before I break down the film, the way how this film sets up, like you have to watch like the first two Guardians of the Galaxy movies, the third and fourth Avengers films, and of course the first 10 minutes of Thor: Love and Thunder, because the Guardians of the Galaxy make cameo appearances in that film, and then of course the Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special. And by the way, the Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special really sets up Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 for some reason, because James Gunn directed a holiday special for the Guardians of the Galaxy, which is actually surprising because it turned out to be pretty good. But also at the same time, it did lead up to Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 a little bit, just slightly. So now, let me break down this film. And by the way, spoiler alert for those who have not seen the film. So Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 opens up with a flashback. Yes, we get a flashback, and it turns out it's a flashback of Rocket Raccoon as a cub. So Rocket Raccoon's a cub who is hanging out with a bunch of his with his other cubs, the raccoon cubs, I should say. but and of course, a mysterious scientist pulling Rocket out of the taking Rocket out of the cage. All we see is the hand in slow motion. We don't know who it is, but we do realize who it will be later on in the film. We get a nice close up shot of Rocket with his cute little raccoon face, but then later on, as time passes, we see Rocket Raccoon being voiced by Bradley Cooper in his, well, how do I say this? His adult form, I should say. Like Rocket Raccoon is just wandering around the headquarters on Nowhere, the the planet Nowhere, which is basically the I don't know. I guess you could say it's planet, but it's still like it's on the skeleton skull of an ancient celestial, which we first saw in the first Guardians of the Galaxy film. So basically the Guardians of the Galaxy, except for Gamora, because Gamora is not with the Guardians of the Galaxy at this time, because Gamora, we get another Gamora, because the Gamora that we got, the Gamora that we got in this film is the one who doesn't know Peter Quill as much, because the other Gamora, the original Gamora, was killed off in Avengers Infinity War by Thanos. Just to let you all know, Rocket is just basically hanging out, wandering around Nowhere with Peter Quill's iPod. I believe it's an iPod, or Zoom, or a Zune. It was a Zune, which actually features a lot of throwback songs from the 1950s, 1960s, 1970s onwards into the 2000s. Like Rocket's just listening to it. He walks into this bar where Peter Jason Quill, Star Lord, played once again by Chris Pratt. He's at the bar being wasted because of Gamora, because he lost Gamora, because he loved Gamora ever since he first met her, and of course the fact that Thanos killed her off, which really puts in a lot of pressure on Peter Jason Quill, because Peter really had feelings for Gamora, but of course he noticed that Rocket is listening to his music on the Zune iPod, and it's just like, hey, what are you doing? Hey, I told you not to touch it. I told you not to touch it, because the fact is, he Star Lord is wasted. He's literally wasted, and of course he passes out, and then we see some of the members of the Guardians of the Galaxy holding a wasted Star Lord as they're walking by. They're walking in front of the screen, and then the background and the title card background of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 pops up, and it's actually a pretty cool. It's actually a pretty cool moment, because because of the background, because of the title background, it shows that it because of the background is showing all the characters walking in front of the screen. That's actually a pretty cool moment with the title of the background, because it's just like a cool moment letting the audience know that, hey, this is the Guardians of the Galaxy for the third and final time. So yeah, now you're probably wondering who was carrying Star Lord. Well, it turns out it was Nebula. Nebula is carrying Star Lord, played once again by Karen Gillan, and she carries Peter to basically to his bed, because Peter is wasted, wasted, just to rest. Until then, a sovereign warrior came in and attacked Nowhere, and of course, this sovereign warrior turns out to be Adam Warlock. Now, for those of you who may or may not know, Adam Warlock played a key role in the Avengers Infinity Gauntlet storyline, and it's a shame we never got to see Adam Warlock in Avengers Infinity War nor Avengers Endgame. It's a real shame, because Adam Warlock played a role in that storyline, the Infinity Gauntlet, where he actually took control of the gauntlet at one point. But unfortunately, we never got to see Adam Warlock in Infinity War nor Endgame. Not until this film came out, and he was teased in Volume Two. He was teased at the end of Volume Two, where the High Priestess Aisha is the High Priestess of the Sovereign, and she's played once again by Elizabeth Debicki, and she was the one who had Adam Warlock created to destroy the Guardians of the Galaxy. Now, Adam Warlock is played by Will Poulter, and I will say this: Adam Warlock gives the members of the Guardians of the Galaxy a huge beating, most notably on Nebula, Groot, and and Nebula, Groot, Drax, and Rocket. Like, in my opinion, Rocket got as much as I want to say Groot got the most beating, but it was literally Rocket because he overpowers everybody and wounds Rocket, and of course Nebula stabs Adam Warlock at the just so Adam Warlock can escape. I will say this: the fight scene with the entire Adam Warlock fight sequence is pretty intense because he gave them a huge beating. Like the Guardians has never faced well, I will say a threat. I mean, he started off as a threat at first, but later on in the movie he does become a good guy. He does become a good guy, and it's just crazy. It's just crazy. Now, at the same time, for those of you who are probably watching, you're probably asking. You're probably gonna be asking, why now with Adam Warlock? Why are we getting Adam Warlock now rather than getting Adam Warlock in Avengers Infinity War or Endgame? I mean, I think it's just the fact that Volume Two, like he was supposed to appear in Volume Two, but they already had so many characters. I guess they didn't have any room to put Adam Warlock in it, which is why they teased him at the end of Volume Two. But of course, with the direction that Disney is going with Marvel, it really is a shame that we never got to see Adam Warlock in the last two Avengers films. I will say it is nice to see Adam Warlock in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, but I feel like it's too little too late to say the least to introduce Adam Warlock. Well, I like Will Poulter as Adam Warlock, but at the same time he does come out as a bit of a useless character at times, just to like, I guess it's just to say maybe fan service, which is actually pretty good fan service, but at the same time, knowing like Adam Warlock's huge role in the comics, like, yeah, I guess you could say is a little too late. But other than that, the Guardians of the Galaxy are unable to tend Rocket's wounds due to a kill switch, which was actually made by the company Orgo Corp, which embedded the kill switch in him. So the Guardians decided to travel to Orgo Corp's headquarters to find the override code, just so they could put in a code to override the kill switch and help cure Rocket. And as Rocket lies unconscious, he recalls his past as a baby raccoon, where he was experimented by the High Evolutionary. Now, the High Evolutionary, he's a scientist who sought to enhance animal life forms to create a new Earth, counter Earth, which actually has anthropomorphic animals. So, which is actually a pretty cool concept if you think about it, because anthropomorphic animals, like they're basically humans, but as anthropomorphic animals, which is actually a pretty cool concept to be honest. But the High Evolutionary is obviously the villain in this film, and and I will say this, he really brings in a lot of he brings in a huge impact to this film. The High Evolutionary is played by Chukwudi Iwuji, who recently appeared in James Gunn's Peacemaker show for DC, and now he's playing the High Evolutionary, which is actually pretty cool. Now, Rocket and the High Evolutionary, I will say this: their chemistry started off pretty good. Like like the High Evolutionary started off as a nice father figure to Rocket. But what we learned later on that the High Evolutionary is not what he seemed to be. He he Rocket befriended the High Evolutionary along with other test subjects, which includes an otter named Lila, a walrus named Teefs, and a rabbit named Floor. Yes, yes, I know, and yes, those are the names. We got an otter named Lila, walrus named Teefs, and a rabbit named Floor. And I will say this: all the flashback scenes with Rocket and all of his other animal friends, I say those were good moments. I like the flashback moments with Rocket and all of his animal buddies. Like it's like they're like a one big happy family. Like and their wish, most notably from Rocket, he wants to travel the galaxy to be free and bring his animal buddies along, including Lila, to which, for those of you who may or may not know, Lila, who's being voiced by Linda Cardellini, who originally played Clint Barton's wife, or Hawkeye's wife in the previous Avengers films. Lila and Rocket are actually a couple. They're actually a couple in the comics. So I like how they incorporated Lila to build in a nice little love relationship. And to be honest, it was cut short for this film. So the High Evolutionary was impressed by Rocket's intelligence, but somehow furious that that Rocket was able to succeed. So basically, Rocket was a lot smarter than the High Evolutionary. So basically, the High Evolutionary perfected his experiments with Rocket's advice, but ordered Rocket's brain to be extracted and his friends incinerated. So this actually brought the attention to Rocket, to which Rocket steals a lot of the High Evolutionary's tech to create a key just so he can free all of his animal buddies. But it turns out it went south so fast. Once Rocket freed Lila, the High Evolutionary kills her. Like he kills her from behind with his own blaster. The High Evolutionary shoots and kills Lila in front of Rocket. Like Rocket didn't see the High Evolutionary, but once Rocket saw the gunshot wound in Lila, he screams. Rocket screams in pain because because of the fact that Lila was literally one of his best friend. Like the High Evolutionary killed Rocket's best friend and possible love interest. Well, obviously love interest in the comic, but possible love interest because he spent his entire life. Rocket spent his entire life in that cage with his friends. Like he grew a huge connection with them, built relationships, and that was taken away by the High Evolutionary. All because all because Rocket wants to escape because the High Evolutionary wants to like test out Rocket. Like Rocket's scream really puts a gut, literally, it's a literal gut punch. Like, do you realize how uncomfortable that is? That is literally one of the most, that's actually the saddest scene in this film, in my opinion. See Rocket Raccoon seeing his love interest getting killed off by the High Evolutionary is probably the saddest scene in this movie, in my opinion. It's just so sad that even Rocket's scream has a competition with the High Evolutionary scream, to which he admitted that Rocket wins the contest. But then Rocket is so mad he mauls the High Evolutionary's face off. Like no, literally, the next moment, Rocket attacks his own creator because the High Evolutionary killed his love interest, his possible love interest, a friend that he met inside the cage for many years while growing up, and he mauls this creator. He mauls the creator to the point where he could have died. And that's just Rocket letting out his anger. Now, I'm gonna go back to Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 for a minute, because towards the end of Volume 2, Yondu was arguing with Rocket Raccoon the fact that he told Rocket that he told Rocket that he knows him. Like, he says, I heard everything I know everything about you. I know you didn't steal these. I know you like to steal these batteries for something, so for some kind of bull stuff. But I know scientists who created you didn't get a rat's behind about you. Like, you go back to that scene. Like, you go back to that scene in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 where Yondu and Rocket are talking, are arguing on the ship about Rocket's past. Like, that gives you a hint about Rocket's past, and it comes together. Like, you realize that it makes sense because Rocket was created by this scientist, and this scientist doesn't care about Rocket. So it turns out this guy, the High Evolutionary, he didn't care about Rocket at all. He didn't care about him being free. All he wanted to do was just have Rocket be the experiment that he is. Subject eight some like to be this experiment. Like, yeah, this experiment. Like, Rocket is like is basically the lab pet to the High Evolutionary. And boy, like his is now the experiment number that Rocket's experiment number is subject 89P13, which was mentioned in the first Guardians of the Galaxy film. Now, also, if you go back to the first Guardians of the Galaxy film, you go to the lineup scene where the Guardians of the Galaxy were arrested. There is a small hidden detail that Rocket was affiliated with Lila, which is basically Rocket's Lila the Otter is basically Rocket's girlfriend, and I mentioned that Lila and Rocket were a couple of the comics. Now, and I liked how the first film addresses the detail that Rocket was affiliated with Lila. So I guess in my opinion, like, the High Evolutionary and his guards really put that in Rocket's records, knowing the fact that Rocket and Lila were once a couple before the High Evolutionary killed Lila off, from my point of view. So I like those hidden details that the first two Guardians of the Galaxy movies did, because it really sets up Rocket's backstory. And this entire film really was the sole focus on Rocket Raccoon. Ever since the beginning of the film, where Adam Warlock critically wounds Rocket, like, that's it sets up the plot. It really set it up the plot where the Guardians have to save Rocket Raccoon. Now, going back to Volume 3, Rocket Raccoon mauls the High Evolutionary, and of course shoots his guards as well. And of course, the guards killed Teeps and Floor in the process. Rocket, who is all alone, steals a spaceship and flies away, and that's it. That is basically it. Like, that is Rocket's backstory. Now, going back in the present, we get to see an alternate version of Gamora. So basically, this is the Gamora from Avengers Endgame, who doesn't know Peter, Jason Quill, or Star-Lord. Now, Gamora has joined the Ravagers, and the Ravagers, this side, the Ravagers has Sylvester Stallone as Stakar, which he appeared in the second Guardians of the Galaxy film. They help the Guardians infiltrate Orgo Corp just so they can retrieve Rocket's file. But somehow the Guardians discover that the code has been removed. The group speculates that Theo, one of the High Evolutionary's advisors, has it, so they depart for Counter-Earth. I also find it kind of crazy during the whole Orgo Corp sequence where all the members of the Guardians were all wearing spacesuits with different colors. It's almost like you're watching it's like Among Us, the phone app game Among Us. It almost reminds me of that. And of course, I like the moments where Peter and Gamora were having a conversation, but it turns out their conversation can be heard from everybody. So basically, everyone's listening to this conversation, and and Peter was having a hard time trying to figure out if trying to figure out which button is which to literally block off everyone's conversation. But unfortunately, Mantis gets a huge laugh by the fact that she presses a button and screams "Hello!" and Star Lord gets irritated by that, and it's so funny. It's so funny. But also, once they go inside the Oracle Corp facility, Mantis loses the spacesuits. She loses the spacesuits after breaking in the Oracle Corp. And of course, we get a Nathan Fillion cameo, who's one of the lead Oracle Corp leaders. And then Star Lord tries to do a was trying to flirt with this woman just so he can like find the Rocket's file in a Patrick Swayze moment, which to which irritates Gamora and Nebula a little bit because Gamora's pretty psychotic to say the least. Because don't forget, Gamora was raised by Thanos. Gamora was raised by Thanos to be the warrior that she is, and of course Nebula is just basically there. Nebula's just there. Like she does grow a bit, but she does get angry. She does get angry like somewhere in the third act, which gets me to like laugh and also like just you know, of course, and then of course a fight breaks out where Drax and Mantis take out a lot of the Oracle Corp guards, and it's pretty funny too, But but it does go a little bit south. But it does go a little bit south after one of the guards wounds Drax the Destroyer a little bit. Drax being played by Dave Bautista once again. Now, now, of course, now, of course, of course, the members of the Guardians are being followed by Aisha. Aisha, who sends out Adam, who are ordered by their creator, the High Evolutionary, to retrieve Rocket for his brain, because the High Evolutionary sends out Aisha and Adam to retrieve Rocket because he knows that Rocket is with the Guardians of the Galaxy. And of course, we also heard that the High Evolutionary created the Sovereign at this point. Now the Guardians of the Galaxy arrived at Counter Earth. Now upon arriving, the team is helped by residents in tracing Theo to the High Evolutionary ship. Drax and Mantis remain with Gamora and Rocket as Peter, Quill, Groot, and Nebula travel to the High Evolutionary ship. Now they travel there by a car, and the car that one of the anthropomorphic animals has is a real car, and this actually leads into the film's first F bomb, first and only F bomb for the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Now yes, Marvel has dropped F bombs before, but for the Marvel Cinematic Universe, this is the Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is the first film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe where an F bomb is actually dropped. It is not censored. It is not cut away. It is actually dropped. They actually dropped their first F bomb, and it's the moment where Peter's trying to tell Nebula to open the door, and he drops the F bomb right as Nebula is struggling to open the door, and it comes out of nowhere. But you have to see this. But you have to see this film to believe it, because there were a few articles that came out prior to the film's release stated that Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 dropped its first F bomb. It's not censored. It is not It is not blocked over. It is literally dropped. Like, and that F bomb was actually improvised. Chris Pratt actually improvised that line. It wasn't scripted, and it was kept in the film's final cut. So yes, you do hear your first F bomb. I went to see this movie with my twin brother Mike, and we were there were a lot of people there, and I was sitting a few seats from this one family who brought their kid along, and I can't imagine. I can't imagine how the kids that one kid's reaction when he first heard uh Star Lord drop an F bomb. I just can't imagine. Like, it's a PG-13. It's still PG-13 though, but you gotta ask yourself. You gotta ask yourself. It is not, and it's true because not only were there a lot of people in my theater that I went to, but a family member brought a little kid along to watch this movie. Yeah, you think this is a kids film? Not at all. I mean, come on. When has the Marvel Cinematic Universe ever become a kids movie franchise? I mean, that's just wrong. I mean, come on, that's just wrong. I mean, there's definitely adult moments in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Phase One did it. Don't forget, Phase One did it too. Adult moments, but not the F bombs. Now, so basically, Star Lord and Nebula, they go to the High Evolutionary ship. Nebula is forced to wait outside by the guards as Quill and Groot board the ship. And by the way, Groot being voiced by once again by Vin Diesel. Groot was decapitated by Adam Warlock at the start of the film, by the way, and I do like how his body grows back. So Star Lord and Groot board the ship while Drax and Mantis pursue Quill's group on a motorcycle. So basically, Drax and Mantis steal a motorcycle. The High Evolutionary initiates his destruction and planned recreation of Counter Earth, which kills all life on the planet, including Aisha. Aisha gets killed off in this film, but Adam Warlock is still alive. And as his ship enters orbit, Quill and Groot leap off and kill Theo, retrieving the code from him. So Theo has the code for Rocket. And then Gamora arrives with the ship to rescue the Guardians of the Galaxy, while Nebula, Mantis, and Drax are aboard the High Evolutionary ship to rescue the now absent Groot and Peter Jason Quill. As Quill's group attempts to access the code, Rocket flatlines and has a near-death experience where he reunites with Lila, Teefs, and Floor. Now, that moment alone where Rocket flatlines and having a near-death experience, that is another moment in that film where we almost lost Rocket. Like, we almost lose Rocket in this film. Like, yes, he has a near-death experience, but he later comes back to life. And it's really heartbreaking too, because we see a close-up reaction of Star Lord screaming like he doesn't want to lose his best friend. He doesn't want to lose his best friend Rocket, because he and Rocket grew a huge connection. He and Rocket grew a huge friendship throughout the entire Guardians of the Galaxy films, and of course the two Avengers films, and of course Thor: Love and Thunder as well. But also knowing the fact that he doesn't want to lose his best friend. Thankfully, Lila tells him that his time has not yet come, as Quill uses the code to disable the kill switch and save Rocket's life. And then of course, and now with Rocket coming back to life, it is a huge exciting moment to know that Rocket is alive. Like, I'm glad Rocket's alive. I mean, you gotta admit, Rocket Raccoon, like, he started off, like, Rocket Raccoon started off as a wisecracking criminal at one point, but as of now, he has grown to become one of the best supporting members of the Guardians of the Galaxy. And out of all the supporting Guardians, out of all the Guardians of the out of all the supporting members of the Guardians of the Galaxy, Rocket Raccoon's probably the best supporting member of the Guardians of the Galaxy, in my personal opinion. Now, now, of course, going back to Nebula, Mantis, and Drax, they're all stuck on the ship, the High Evolutionary ship, where they come across hundreds, possibly thousands of imprisoned humanoid children before being captured. And of course, all the children were basically all the children sees the three, and Nebula's like freaking out. She's angry at the kids. She doesn't know what these kids are talking about, and Nebula screams at them to the point where they all started crying. Like, Nebula is an adult who literally screams at the kids because she wants to get out of this ship. She wants to get out of this ship, and then the kids were starting to cry as if a big meanie is just basically a big meanie, because all the kids are crying because Nebula is acting like a big meanie. But of course, Drax steps in just to cheer the kids up, because don't forget, Drax had a family. Drax had a wife and a child. Like Drax had a wife and a child of his own. And he tells this story. He tells this nice story of how he sees his child. Like, he cares for his child. And it was his daughter. He cared for his daughter because his daughter was killed off by Thanos and Ronan the Accuser, by the way. But they were able to help. The kids were able to help free the members of the Guardians of the Galaxy. And of course, all the members come onto the High Evolutionary's ship, and the Guardians of the Galaxy, they were able to take out all the guards, all the High Evolutionary's guards, in this amazing action sequence where the camera is having this one long take. You get an awesome one long action sequence take where all the members of the Guardians of the Galaxy, members of the Guardians, are taking out the High Evolutionary's guards, and it is a high stakes action scene that is probably the best action scene in this movie. Like, that is obviously the best action scene where the members of the Guardians are taking out all the guards in the High Evolutionary ship. And is obviously one of the best action scene in this movie, in my opinion. Because Rocket is done running, and he wants to face off his creator and save everybody. And he does. Along with Mantis, Nebula, and Drax riding Abasilis. Like these octopus-like monsters from the one to which one of them appeared in the second film. Mantis was able to befriend them, allowing the group to escape and reunite with Quill's group. And of course, they take out the High Evolutionary's army, with Kraglin and Cosmo arriving on nowhere, and of course, creating an open field for all the kids to come aboard the ship. And of course, the animals as well, because the High Evolutionary also traps animals as well. And then we get to the moment where the High Evolutionary takes out Rocket. Like, he has the upper hand on Rocket, and he's just like, "You thought you could escape me? I have created you. I have the power to destroy you." But then Rocket overpowers the High Evolutionary and actually says this line: "My name is Rocket Raccoon." And of course, all the members of the Guardians of the Galaxy, all the members of the Guardians, take out the High Evolutionary, with Gamora stabbing him and peeling off his face. So yes, So yes, Gamora peels off the High Evolutionary's face. Now, I didn't catch this at first because I thought Rocket Raccoon just scratched his face, but no, it turns out Rocket literally peeled off his face because Rocket mauled the High Evolutionary in the flashback scene where the High Evolutionary killed Lila, and it's a gruesome moment which almost leads into an R-rated territory. Like when you watch this film, it almost you're in R-rated territory. It's like you're in R-rated territory despite the film being PG-13. Like once the High Evolutionary space was peeled off, you see you see partially a skeleton, the skeleton face of the High Evolutionary. And I say partially because you do see the skeleton nose, and of course the blood as well. It is really gruesome. It's like you're in R-rated territory. Now I don't know if the High Evolutionary is dead. I'm assuming he's dead. I mean, it doesn't really explain because at the end, the High Evolutionary is just on the ground with his face peeled. So I'm guessing he's still alive, but it has not been explained. So anyway, So basically, Rocket Raccoon and the rest of the Guardians of the Galaxy, along with the other animals, they leave the High Evolutionary ship, and they were able to get onto nowhere. Quill almost dies trying to cross over, but he's being saved by Adam Warlock, who had a change of heart after being saved by Groot. Yeah, yeah, Adam Warlock comes to the rescue. Because the thing is, like I said, it's too little too late to put in Adam Warlock. I feel like, in my opinion, despite a strong open for Adam Warlock, he's pretty useless in this film, to say the least. I mean, look, I know there's a bolo of Adam Warlock fans out there, and I give respect to the actor. The actor did a fantastic job with what he was given for Adam Warlock, but I feel like Adam Warlock's appearance feels too little too late, in my opinion. Like, they should have introduced him in either Infinity War or Endgame, and then, of course, go from there. Yeah. But anyway, in the aftermath of the fight, uh, Peter Jason Quill, aka Star-Lord, leaves the Guardians of the Galaxy, bestowing the rank of captain to Rocket. And before leaving for Earth to reunite with his grandpa Jason, Mantis embarks on a journey of self-discovery. And of course, Gamora reunites with the Ravagers, and Nebula and Drax remain on Nowhere to raise the rescued children. And it is a heartfelt moment because this is the last time. Well, for now, I believe for now, this is the last time for now you see all the members of the Guardians of the Galaxy. Like, you see them again on screen for the last time. It is the last time you see all the members of the Guardians, and it's really heartfelt because you get to see them for the first time in the first film. We later get to see them, and we get to see them grow as a family, and it really, really is heartfelt to see. It is a heartfelt moment to that the members of the Guardians are saying their final goodbyes as they depart on different journeys, and it really is a heartfelt moment. Even Kraglin himself, like he is still there, but it's just sad, man. It's Kraglin's still there. I mean, we don't get to see Kraglin as much in this film, but I will say this: the cherry on top is seeing Yondu again. Like, we got to see Yondu in a cameo where he tells Kraglin to use your heart, boy. Just remember to use your heart, because the Kraglin in the final battle, Kraglin was able to use Yondu's arrow, and he does it by using the heart while whistling. So yeah, that was a heartfelt moment, and then of course we get post credit. And then of course we get a mid credit scene where the new Guardians, which actually has Rocket, Groot, Cosmo the Space Dog, Kraglin, Adam Warlock, and one of the rescued children, and of course Adam's pet Blurp. The Blurp, which was actually a pet that one of the Ravagers had, and now that Blurp is a pet is a new pet to Adam Warlock because of the fact that one of the Ravagers had the pet Blurp, but that Ravager was killed off, by the way. So we got new members of the Guardians, and they go on a new mission. And in a post-credit scene later, Star-Lord eats breakfast with his grandpa. And of course, not to mention, we get to see a heartfelt moment where Peter Quill sees his grandpa for the very first time as a child, where he was abducted by Yondu, now sees his grandpa once again. And it is a moment that will definitely leave you in tears. Like, it's really something. It's real, and it really is. Now, of course, the end credit scene, it did say Star-Lord will return, but when will we see Star-Lord again? In a new Guardians film or a future Avengers film? We don't know. But as of now, this is it. The characters get their final goodbyes and their final send-offs. So overall, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 was a good send-off. Now I know the film does have its fair share of flaws, most notably like putting in Adam Warlock too little too late. But other than that, I think Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is a very good film. A lot better than Ant-Man 3 in my opinion, and a good film for Phase 5. Like I know, like it is a good film for Phase 5. Now, outside of now overall, people are saying that this film, that Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is like one of the best Marvel films since Avengers Endgame. And I guess you could say it is. Like, the story-wise is a bit all over the place. I mean, the pacing is a little bit slow, but at the same time, for a film that is basically the final installments for the Guardians, it really delivered. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 really delivered on what we expected for a third Guardians of the Galaxy film. James Gunn has done a fantastic job with this film. While it is hard to say what his time at DC will be like, but only time will tell. But other than that, the story overall, like I said, despite some pacey issues, the film was overall good. I like the soundtrack for the soundtracks that the music they have for this film is good too. I like the different throwback songs they included as well. And then of course Rocket's backstory. Rocket's backstory was literally the pinpoint was literally the sole purpose of this film. Rocket Raccoon was the main character of this film. Yes, even though Peter Jason Quill is the main character, but it's literally Rocket. Rocket's the main character. Like, throughout this entire film, the entire film is to basically save Rocket, and Rocket Raccoon is obviously the main focus of this film. From his backstories to the present to how he evolved to becoming a member of the Guardians of the Galaxy, like, Rocket Raccoon has been through a lot, and Bradley Cooper has done a fantastic job providing the voice of Rocket Raccoon. And of course, the High Evolutionary. The High Evolutionary was definitely a threat to behold. Like, he's not at the level of Thanos, but I heard a lot of people saying that he's like King the Conqueror, but better, despite King's appearance. Although the High Evolutionary, dang man, the High Evolutionary, he is melodramatic, but he is a pretty good villain too. Like, I don't know much about the High Evolutionary, but dang, he was a good villain. The High Evolutionary was a pretty good villain in this movie, in my opinion. Now, of course, obviously the film was overall good. Will it do well at the box office? Well, it is hard to say right now because some people are saying it might bomb at the box office, but Only time will tell. Only time will tell. But other than that, overall, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 was an overall good send-off for the members of the Guardians of the Galaxy. And there you have it. That's my take on Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Now I know now what do you all think about Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3? Like, did you like the film? Did you thought the film was okay? Did you think Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 was a good send-off to the members of the Guardians of the Galaxy? Let me know your thoughts. I would love to hear your thoughts. So, anyway, that's a wrap for this episode. Thank you all for tuning in to Codo Cinema. I'm your host, Mark Codo, aka Codoman. Remember to watch movies and stay positive.